Okay, we're going to do lesson 13-1. This is page 673 in your math workbook, 673. Okay, Gregor threw a softball 3/4 of the length of the yard in front of his house. Find as many fractions as you can that name the same part of the length that Gregor threw. So we want to look at our fraction flip books, okay? And we're going to go start over here where the 1/4 is. We're going to 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, okay? So we want to find other fractions that are just as long as 3/4. I'm going to move this over here for a second. Okay, so 3/4 is right here. Okay, so 3/4, there's nothing with 1/2 that's going to line up. But if we look right here, what other ones line up right here? There's a certain number of 8s that are going to line up and a certain number of 12s. They're going to line up with 3/4 perfectly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 8s is going to be the same length as 3/4. And also on the 12s here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9/12 is going to be as long too. So here we could say that 3/4 is equal to, what do we say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be the same as 6 8s, but it's also going to be the same as 8/12. Okay, remember we counted it that way. Okay. How can fraction strips help you tell if a fraction with a denominator of 2, 3, or 6 would name the same part of a whole as 3/4? Well, you have to use your fraction flip book, okay, for this. So we have to look at 3/4, right? Right here. And we have to say they want to know, if something has a denominator of 2, is it going to line up? Let me move this over here again, because this is just too hard on this thing here. Okay. So again, we're looking at 3/4. You see what I'm doing? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So how can fraction strips help you tell if a fraction with a denominator of 2, 3, or 6 would name the same part? 2 is not going to work because this is 1/2 and that's 2/2. That's not going to work. The other one was 3. So you got 1/3, 2/3 is going to be right here, 3/3 is going to be right there. So any number of thirds is not going to line up with our 3/4. We need something to line up right at this line right here. That's why I always have you put your pencil right on it, okay? Or 6. Well, if we look at the 6th, again, it's the same thing, okay? One of them is going to end here, one of them is going to end here. So using the fraction flip book helps us realize that 3/4 is not going to line up properly with any of the halves, the thirds, or the 6. It does with the 8s and the 12s though, okay? All right, let's flip to the back. All right, the Chisholm Trail was used to drive cattle to the market. Ross's herd has walked halfway there. What is another way to name 1/2? Well, again, we have to look at our fraction flip book, okay? Here's 1/2 right here. So what's another way that we could name 1/2? We can do it with fourths, okay? If you're looking at 1/2 right there, 2/4 is going to line up, 3/6 is going to line up, 4/8 is going to line up, and 6/12 is going to line up. These are all going to line up with 1/2. See this 1/2 line? Any of the ones that line up with that, you can count the number of fractions that went into getting to that halfway point. So this is just like your fraction flip book. Here's 1/2. If you're looking at the fourths down there, 2/4 is the same as 1/2. Because look, you have 2/4, which makes sense because a fourth is half as small as a half, right? Because you took something as half, you divided it. This was originally half, right? You divide it in half and you made 4 parts. And these are 2 out of the 4. The other 2 are over here. Okay. Also look at half over here. Again, same as your fraction strip. 1/2 is going to be the same as 2/4, or it could be the same as 4/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you put those together, they make the same amount, same length as 1/2. In the example above, which pattern do you see in the numerators and denominators or the fraction are equivalent to 1/2? Okay, so what they're getting at here is if you're looking at the denominators, okay, and you're looking at 1/2, 2/4, 6/8, not 6/8, 4/8, and 6/12, also 3/6. Okay, look at the numerator and denominator. 1 is half of 2. 2 is half of 4. 4 is half of 8. 6 is half of 12. 3 is half of 6. So when you're looking at a fraction that is equivalent to 1/2, all of these, the top number, the numerator, needs to be half of the denominator because it's 1/2. You have half. You have a pizza that you've cut into four pieces, and you've eaten 2 of them. You've eaten half of it. You have a pizza that you've cut into 8 equal pieces, and you've eaten 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you've eaten half of that pizza. Same thing with 12. You cut it in 12, you eat 6. You've eaten half. You cut something in 6 equal pieces, you eat 3 of them, you've eaten half of it. Okay? All right, you can find an equivalent fraction for 4/6 using an area model. Okay, so the most important thing here is that your rectangles need to be the same size when you're going to draw equivalent fractions. And then you have to try to make the sections, of course, they're equal, but you want to start shading both of them from the top or start shading both of them from the bottom, okay? So this box was divided into thirds, right? You have 1, 2, 3, and then they went down the middle. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one was just divided into thirds because our denominator is 3 compared to 6. So if I shade 4 out of the 6, that's the same as shading 2 out of the 3, okay? Guided practice. Divide the second area model into 6. Shade it to show a fraction equivalent to 1/3. So this one is 1/3. This one, we want, the denominator needs to be 6, okay? So they're the same exact height. We're going to divide that into thirds, but we want to divide it into 6. So just draw a line down the middle, right? Now we have 6. All right, so if we shade this top bar up here, out of the 6, how many have we shaded? 2, right? So it equals to 2/6, okay? Use the fraction strips to help you find equivalent fractions. So 1/4 is equal to how many 8ths? This 1/4 is the same size as 2 8ths, okay? I want you to pause it right here. I want you to do the independent practice front and back, and then come back and I want you to check your answers, okay? All right, use the fraction strips to help you find an equivalent fraction. 1/2, now you shouldn't be doing this with me unless you've already done it and you're coming back for your corrections. 1/2 is the same as 2/4. So you have 1, 2, same size. Divide the second area model into 8ths, okay? So this needs to have a denominator of 8. So I'm gonna divide it in half, but using that same line right there, okay? And then I'm going to divide each one of those into half. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll just draw a line down the middle. So now I have 8. And if I want to shade up until this middle part, okay, so 1/2 is equal to 4/8. I have 8 parts total, and I've shaded 4 of them. Okay, find each equivalent fraction. Okay, 3/4 compared to how many 8ths? Okay, again, you can use your fraction flip book here. Okay, 3/4 is the same as how many 8ths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 8ths. Okay? 6, 6. That's the whole thing. So if I want one whole, I need to have 8 8ths. Okay? 2/6. Okay, 2/6 is right here. And they want to know how many thirds is that? That would be 1/3. And 4/8, is how many halves. Okay, well, here's 4/8. How many halves is that? 1. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick here, okay? So, you know with equations, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. We know that, right? So you can ask yourself, what do I do to 4? What do I multiply by 4 to get to 8? And that would be times 2, right? So 4 times 2 is 8, therefore 3 times 2 is 6, okay? You can't quite do it with 6 and 8 because you can't multiply, well, you can, but it's like, 1.25 or 1.2. So you can't quite do it with that one. You're going to have, but you know that 6 is 1 whole, so 8/8 is 1 whole. Okay, 6, go with the smaller number. What do you multiply times 3 to get to 6? It would be 3 times 2 is 6, so 1 times 2 is 2. You could also do it with the bigger number. You could do like division. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so therefore 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you look at the ones you know and figure out what am I multiplying or dividing by to get to this one, and then you do the same up here. So let's do 8, gave you the answer. 8 divided by what equals 2? I know I'm dividing because my number is getting smaller. So 8 divided by 4 equals 2, so 4 divided by 4 equals 1, okay? All right, let's take a look at the back. All right, Marcy used fraction strips to show equivalent fractions. Complete the equation. So how many fourths, okay, is equivalent to how many eighths, okay? Now, we could use, let's see, how many fourths does she have? 2 fourths. So we want to know how many eighths are in there. That should be 4. And look, take a look at what I was saying about, right? 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 times 2 is 4, right? Okay, Rita says the fraction strips show fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. Explain what you could do to the diagram to see if she is correct. You could split this 1 in half. And then you would have 2 fourths in 1/2 and 4 eighths in 1/2, okay? So you could divide 1 whole in half to make 1/2, okay? A band learns 4 to 6 songs, new songs every month. What is a good estimate for the number of songs the band will learn in 8 months? Well, what number is right in between 4 and 6? 5. So 5 songs per month times 8 months would be 40 new songs. 3/8 of a playground is covered by grass. What fraction of the playground is not covered by grass? All right, so we want to divide this into 8. Oops. I did not do that right. And I'm using pen in math, which is why you don't use pen in math. Okay. Divide that in half, and half, and half. Divide this in half, and in half, and half. So let's just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 3/8 is in grass, so what fraction is not? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 should be 5/8. Okay. You might also look at that and go, okay, 3/8 plus what? The whole is 8/8. So 3/8 plus how many more would get you 8/8, which is the whole, which 3 plus 5 would get you to 8, right? So it'd be 5/8. All right, Aiden folded 2 strips of paper into 8s. So what you need to do is draw this into 8s, which means you divide it in half, and then there needs to be 4 on each side. So you're going to divide it in half again. And then each section goes in half. Okay, so take this side, divide it in half over here. Each section is in half. Okay, all right. He shaded a fraction equal to 1/4 on the strip and a fraction equal to 3/4 on the second strip. Show the fractions Aiden shaded on the pictures to the right. Okay, so we need to know 3/4 is equivalent to how many eighths, right? Because this is eighths and we want to shade this one equivalent to 3/4. And this one we want to do equivalent to 1/4, okay? So if you look here, you could use your fraction strip too, okay? 3/4. Here's 3/4. Okay, so the first one, he shades 3/4, but ours is divided into 8. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the top one, he should shade in 6/8, and that's going to be the same distance as 3/4. And then the other one was 1/4 right here. And we want to know how many eighths is that, which 2/8 is the same as 1/4. So up here, he's going to do 6/8. And here for 1/4, he's just going to do 2/8. Now we can also use our cool multiplication division here. Okay, 3/4 is how many eighths? Is equivalent to how many eighths? 4 times 2 is 8. So 3 times 2 is 6. So that tells us 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. And 4 times 2 is 8. So 1 times 2 is 2. And we shaded in 2/8. Okay, which fractions are equivalent? Again, if they're equivalent, you should be able to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, right? To get from here to there. So if you're looking at 1/4 and 1/8, no way can they be equivalent. First of all, 1/4 is way bigger than 1/8, but also there's nothing, if you multiply 4 times 2, 1 times 2 is not still 1. So that's not gonna work, okay? 1/4 and 2/8, let's see, 4 times 2 is 8 and 1 times 2 is 2, so that works, but let's look at it. 1/4 compared to 2/8, yes, that is equivalent, okay? 4 times 2 is 8 and 2 times 2 is 4, so that should work. Let's see, we have 2/4, and that is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 4/8, okay? 3/4 and 3/8, so here you have 3/4, and that is equivalent to 3/8. Nope. And look, okay, 4 times 2 is 8. Is 3 times 2 3? No. Okay, and then 3/4 and 6/8. 4 times 2, 3 times 2. So let's look, 3/4 and 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one's equivalent. Okay, great job.